Afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the spring semester Civic Life Lunch at Tisch College. This is the beginning of our program for this spring, and I invite you all to return throughout the semester for a terrific lineup of events. We'll be welcoming a diverse group of civic leaders, including Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Senator Tim Scott, Valerie Kaur, Reverend James Lawson Jr. and Kent Wong, and many more. Follow us on social media and check out our website for more information and to register. We're really excited today to be joined by Ali Smith, Altman Smith, and Andres Gonzalez, co-founders of the Holistic Life Foundation. Brothers Ali and Altman and Andres founded the Holistic Life Foundation in 2001 in Baltimore. This community-based organization develops and provides high-quality, evidence-based programs and curriculum to improve community well-being and empower individuals. The Holistic Life Foundation's programming includes yoga, mindfulness, and environmental-based programs for youth in schools, recreation centers, group homes, the Baltimore Juvenile Detention Center, and other venues. The HLF team has also facilitated adult programs in many different settings, including universities. The work has been featured on NBC Nightly News, CNN, and CBS, as well as Oprah Magazine, the Washington Post, and many other publications. Ali Smith has almost 20 years experience teaching yoga, mindfulness, and meditation internationally. He is a published author, has written several curricula, and is a pioneer in the fields of yoga and mindfulness in education, as well as trauma-informed yoga and mindfulness, developing best practices that are used around the world. Altman Smith has taught yoga and mindfulness to a diverse population, including underserved and high-risk youth in Baltimore City public schools, drug treatment centers, wellness centers, and colleges for over 20 years. Andres Gonzalez has taught yoga to diverse populations throughout the world for almost 19 years. He's partnered with Johns Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Health, and the Penn State's Prevention Research Center on a stress and relaxation study, and is a published author in the Journal of Children's Services. Today, they'll guide us through meditative exercises aimed at reducing stress and promoting emotional, physical, and community well-being. Ali, Altman, and Andres will also be discussing the importance of incorporating mindfulness practices in everyday life, share how they came to start the Holistic Life Foundation, and will answer our questions. I'm particularly thrilled to introduce today's event, as the practice of yoga is an important part of my life. As part of my own practice, I've explored the connections between mindfulness and racial justice, particularly in the area of awareness-based systems change. I look forward to engaging in this meaningful practice together and reinforcing the importance of self-care and prioritizing our well-being as we embark on a new semester during this stressful and challenging time. Before we get started, let me acknowledge our co-sponsors for this event, including the President's Office, Tufts Health Promotion and Prevention, the Tufts Mindfulness Collaborative, and the Generous Listening and Dialogue Center's Social Emotional Learning and Civic Engagement Initiative at Tisch Select. Your generous collaboration makes events like this one possible, and we are grateful for your partnership. Thank you also to our colleague, Deborah Donahue-Keegan, Associate Director of the Generous Listening and Dialogue Center, and the head of its Social Emotional Learning and Civic Engagement Initiative at Tisch, for her support of this event and introducing us to HLF's work. I look forward to hearing from Deborah later on during this program. Thank you all for being with us, and please give a warm welcome to Ali, Altman, and Andres from the Holistic Life Foundation.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for having us. We really appreciate being here. It's good to be back. Heck yeah.
Yeah, it is. We're gonna start with the practice if you all are cool with it. So if you could maybe move to the edge of your seat, have your feet grounded, have your back, neck, and head aligned, and I invite you or welcome you to close your eyes, and then maybe grab your right ankle, and then bring your right leg behind your neck. Just kidding. Honestly, we like to keep it light. It's a lot of people who are pretty robotic when they teach this stuff. But honestly, if you look back in your memory, every time you've had fun with a teacher, they've had a lasting impression on you. But honestly, the movement is very important. If you all have read Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps a Score, trauma does get stored in the body, and contemplative practices, yoga poses, and stuff like that help to release the trauma that's stored in the body. But this actual practice is a variation of a loving kindness practice. In this human experience, it's just human nature to kind of love other people before you love yourself, and take care of other people before you take care of yourself. And that leads to like burnout and a lot of other negative emotions, jealousy, regret, resentment. But if you start off with your inner foundation full of self-love and taking care of yourself, it makes it that much easier to love and to take care of others going forward. So for real this time, move to the edge of your seat, have your feet grounded, back, neck, and head aligned. And I invite you or welcome you to close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can soften your gaze, close your eyes 9/10 of the way, or you can keep your eyes open and just focus on a point. But, we recommend that you close your eyes if you feel comfortable enough because it limits your distractions. All the breathing that we're going to be doing is in and out through our nose. And we're going to take a couple deep breaths together. So everyone inhale through your nose, long, slow, deep breath, filling your stomach up with air like it's a balloon. Fill it all the way up. And then exhale through your nose, another long, slow, deep breath, squeeze in your stomach and push all that air out, trying to bring your belly button to your spine. Inhale deep again through your nose, long, slow, deep breath, filling your stomach up with air. Fill it all the way up. And then exhale through your nose, long, slow, deep breath, letting your stomach fall, eventually trying to bring your belly button to your spine. One more together, long, slow, deep breath through your nose, filling your stomach up with air, fill it all the way up. And exhale, push all that air out. Long, slow, deep breath, letting your belly fall, squeezing your belly button to your spine. Now you can just breathe on your own at a nice natural pace. Don't put any effort into it. Just make sure that you're breathing in and out through your nose. And we're going to start using our imaginations. With every inhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pulling in all the positivity that the earth has to offer us inside our body. With that in-breath, whatever that looks and feels like to you, feel and see that with that inhale. And with every exhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pushing out any negativity from within, any stress, any anger, any jealousy or resentment, any sicknesses or ailments, anything at all that's inside of you that you know that's not healthy for you. Once again, we want to use our imaginations and see and feel it leave your body with the breath. So once more, with every inhale, pulling in that positivity from the earth. With every exhale, pushing that negativity from within, out with that out breath. Once again, stress, anger, jealousy, resentment, sicknesses or ailments, anything at all that you all have inside of you that you know that's not healthy for you. Use your imagination and see and feel it leave your body with the breath. And you all know, just like in life, when you try to meditate or do a silent reflection or a loving kindness practice, distractions can arise. If you do get distracted, don't beat yourself up. Just understand that's the nature of the human mind. Acknowledge the distraction, whether it's a thought, sound, or sensation. Don't fight with it. Let it pass naturally. And when it does pass, anchor yourself back to the breath. And once again, with that inhale, pulling in that positivity from the earth. And with that exhale, pushing out that negativity from within. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time, with every in-breath, we want to feel and see ourselves pulling in all the healing oxygen from the trees, plants, and bodies of water. And we want to feel and see it energize and replenish our internal muscles, bones, and organs. So with every inhale, really feel and see that happen. And with every exhale, we want to feel and see ourselves pushing out the stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. So once again, with every inhale, pulling in that healing oxygen from the trees, plants, and bodies of water, energizing our muscles, bones, and organs. And with every exhale, pushing out that stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. And meditation, silent reflections, or loving kindness practices are all about extending the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. If you can only stay focused for 3 breaths, then you get distracted. Once again, have empathy towards yourself, understanding that that's the nature of the mind. Let that distraction pass, whether it's a thought, sound, or sensation. When it does pass, once again, anchor yourself back with the breath and then try to get 4 breaths, then 5 breaths. Once again, it's all about extending the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. And it's less of a battle with yourself than it is a play. But definitely try to extend the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. And right now, we're focused on pulling in that healing oxygen into our body with that in-breath from the trees, plants, and bodies of water, energizing and replenishing our internal muscles, bones, and organs. And with every exhale, pushing out that stale carbon dioxide, feeding the trees and plants that gave us oxygen. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time, all we're going to do is focus on all of our loved ones, whether it's our family or friends, no matter how far away they live, no matter if they're living or not, love knows no boundaries. So with our breath, all we're going to focus on is sending love to our loved ones with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. Sending our loved ones love with our breath. And the beauty about this practice is there is no right or wrong, there just is. So once again, with our breath, all we're doing is sending love to our loved ones with that breath. And once again, if distractions do arise, don't beat yourself up. Just acknowledge it, whether it's a thought, sound, or sensation. And when it does pass naturally, anchor yourself back with the breath. And once again, all we're doing is sending love to our loved ones with our breath. Whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time we're going to focus on all those people that stress us out or make us angry, whether it's our family or friends, colleagues, fellow students, people in our communities, politicians, whoever it is that stresses you out or makes you angry. Once again, we're going to send them love with our breath. Even though they stress you out or make you angry, they probably need love more than anyone else. And we all know whatever you put out there comes back tenfold. So always lead with love. So once again, with our breath, all we're focused on is sending love to those people that stress us out or make us angry. We're sending them love with our breath. This is a great way to evict people from renting space in your mind, or in other words, a release. So once again, with our breath, all we're doing is sending love to those people that stress us out or make us angry. We're sending them love with our breath. And once again, just understand there is no right or wrong. There just is with this practice. And remember, it's all about extending the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. Never beat yourself up if you do lose focus. Just acknowledge it, then redirect yourself back to the breath. And once again, try to extend the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. And right now, we're focused on sending love to those people that stress us out or make us angry. We're sending them love with our breath. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And we've sent love to people that we love. We sent love to people that stress us out. Now it's time to send love to the most important person in your life, and that's yourself. Like I said at the beginning, if you start off with your inner foundation full of self-love and taking care of yourself, it makes it that much easier to love and take care of others going forward without burning yourself out or without resentment. So once again, with our breath, all we're focused on is sending our self-love with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe, sending our self-love with our breath. And, just another reminder, if you do get distracted, always practice empathy towards yourself, just because that's the nature of the human mind to get distracted. Acknowledge that distraction, thought, sound, or sensation. Don't fight with it. Just let it pass. And when it does pass, anchor yourself back with the breath. And once again, sending yourself love with the breath. All right, we're going to use our imaginations again. And this time with our breath, we're going to send love to planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within, animals, plants, humans, inanimate objects, anything at all that resides within planet Earth or Mother Earth and Mother Earth herself. We're going to send love with our breath. Once again, whatever that looks and feels like to you, that's all we're going to feel and see as we breathe. Send planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within love with our breath. And just another reminder that these practices are all about extending the time or the amount of breaths that you can remain focused. Whenever you do lose focus, don't beat yourself up. Just acknowledge what distracted you. Let it pass. And when it does pass, anchor yourself back with that breath. And once again, right now, we're focused on sending love to planet Earth or Mother Earth and all the inhabitants that reside within, animals, plants, humans, inanimate objects. We're sending love with our breath. And just remember, there is no right or wrong. There just is with this practice. All right, we're going to slowly bring ourselves away from the breath and back to our bodies. So if your eyes are closed, you can keep them closed. And we're going to start off just by wiggling our toes. You can wiggle our fingers. You can roll your ankles and wrists. You can do a neck roll both ways just to stretch your neck out. And then you can slowly blink your eyes open and come back to your senses. And before we jump into, the background of our organization, just about that practice, we've been blessed to kind of hang out with a lot of neuroscientists. And, for a while, they were always talking about neuroplasticity and, the way that, we can rewire our brains with certain habits. The beauty about this practice is if we've seen neuroplasticity in action, whether it's, with the part where you're sending love to yourself, kids who didn't, and adults that didn't love themselves, were asked to kind of love and take care of others and take care of their planet and care about other people. And it's hard to really do that if they don't care about themselves. And, with this practice, we've seen empathy get developed in these people where they start loving themselves. And then, they start worrying about, the bigger picture besides themselves. And then honestly, with the part where people are sending love to those people that stress them out or make them angry, we've seen people that can't really peacefully resolve conflicts and they will resort into, resolving them with their fists. We've seen people actually change with this practice over time, not overnight, but over time, where they would usually let people rent space in their mind. But with sending people love who stress you out, it makes you not focus on them and evict them, like I said, from renting space in your mind. So, these practices help heal trauma in so many different ways and, help you change how you respond to things instead of react,
All right, so a little bit on how we got started, why we do the work we do, and what we're up to these days. Atman and I are brothers. We grew up in West Baltimore. At the time we grew up, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, being vegetarian, they weren't definitely as popular as they are now. But our parents got into them very early on, like even before we were born, they were into this stuff. Just they were looking for a way to kind of live a healthier life. And if they were going to have kids, they want their kids to be exposed to these things too. So actually, our dad had a prostate issue, and that was how we got into the yoga practice, actually. Our dad had a prostate issue, went to his best friend, who's our godfather and teacher, and was telling him about his prostate issue. He showed him, he said, hey, do these couple things. It'll heal your prostate issue. You won't have a prostate issue ever again. He did them, and his prostate issue was healed up, never had another prostate issue. And he's like, well, what is that? Slid him the complete illustrated book of yoga. My dad's love of yoga started at that point. Once my dad got into it, the two of them started going to a lot of places around Baltimore that were actually places you can go and learn different forms of yoga between Baltimore, Northern Virginia, DC, Philly. They learned a lot of physical yoga practices, Kundalini, Kriya, Tantra. Our mom got into Ayurvedic cooking and vegetarianism. So when me and Atman were born, we were kind of thrown into the practice. They didn't really get into the yoga or the breath work, but we did get into meditation. Our dad taught us transcendental meditation. He would make us wake up every morning. Actually, we didn't even know it was transcendental meditation until maybe like 6 or 8 months ago, like we were having a conversation with him. But we just knew it as how we meditated as kids. And, we would practice meditation every morning, get us up at crack of dawn. We would meditate, watch Scooby-Doo and Woody Woodpecker with breakfast, and head straight to school. The school they put us in, so we were also vegetarian, so there's no meat, no animal product. We were pretty much vegan for the most part. No animal products, no sugar, no salt in the house. Another thing to make us stand out and be weird to our friends. So as much as we could, we kept in the house just because we wanted at least, they also sent us to private school. All our friends went to the local public school, but our parents sent us to Friends School of Baltimore, which is a Quaker school. And they were really big into the Quaker values of stewardship, mindfulness, like taking a pause before you did anything, the meeting for worship practice, celebrating diversity, but also seeing the commonality in everyone. So they really liked that school. And then we grew up in a church that was based on the Self-Realization Fellowship, like that whole autobiography of the yogi lineage. So we practiced a lot of meditation there too. It was more subjective meditation that we practiced there. And so, it was kind of around us as kids. When our parents got divorced, I guess I was in 4th grade. when the process started, and by the time I was in fifth grade, they were totally separated and divorced. But from that point on, we didn't meditate anymore. Fast forward to college at the University of Maryland College Park was where we met Andy. Just hanging out after like bars and house parties and talking, and saw that we saw the world very similarly, in the fact that there seemed to be a lot of suffering, the people and the planet, and no one seemed to be doing anything about it or really care about it. People were more concerned with earning a living and being successful financially, raising a family, but they weren't looking at the other people around them that weren't as fortunate as them. So our partying turned into a book club. We just sat around, we read and watched documentaries all the time. And, I think the more that we looked for information, the more questions we had. We weren't really finding the answers. It was just the more we read, the more questions were popping up. Like, all right, so we got to figure something out, but we couldn't really figure anything out. Atman was hanging out at our godfather's house and saw this book on his altar. This old Kundalini yoga book by Yogi Bhajan, and had all these cool practices in it that we're kind of Star Wars and superhero nerds still to this day. And it had a lot of stuff in there that seemed very similar to like being a Jedi or superhero. So we're like, we want to learn this. We went and talked to him. He was like, well, he explained to us, what the practice was really about, getting in touch with the true universal self, and all these other things were just kind of distractions or byproducts of the practice. But what the practice was really about was uplifting yourself and then using that to show other people how to uplift themselves and uplift humanity. So he said he would teach us, but we just had to make a promise that one, we would show up at his house at 4 a.m. the next morning, and two, that we would agree to be teachers, because he didn't want to teach students. He wanted to teach teachers. Like, he loved his solitary recluse lifestyle where he could just study and read all the time. And he didn't really want to be bothered. So he was like, I'll just dump all this information on you all, and you all go teach as many people as possible. So we agreed. And eventually we started the Holistic Life Foundation as a response to the things that we weren't seeing in the neighborhood we grew up in. Like I said, we grew up in West Baltimore, right near where the Freddie Gray uprisings happened. We're actually right in the epicenter where it all happened. And, when we grew up there, this was pre-crack. So it was a very loving, cohesive, unified community. You knew everyone was a part of your family, a lot of homeowners. Crack hit, destroyed the family and the physical infrastructure. So when we moved back, it wasn't the same as it was. Like when we grew up, when we and Atman grew up there, we had older brothers in our neighborhood who, it's like every hood had their own built-in mentoring system where you had older brothers and sisters who might not have lived in your house with you, but helped to kind of nurture you and show you the right way of doing things. But that was gone when we got back. There weren't a lot of homeowners. People were individuals instead of a cohesive, like unified family. And, so we were deep into our practice. When we moved back in there, we spent most of our time in practice. Our dad was one of those people who sat us down and told us not to go get jobs when we graduated from school. It's at a point where a lot of his friends were getting downsized and like losing their pensions and losing the jobs that they'd given their life to. And he was like, well, I don't want that for you all. And then, you have to deal with, in a lot of the areas that we would have gone into for work, we had to deal with a lot of racism and a lot of like that. You can go this far, but you can't go that far with where you are in this company. So he was like, he didn't really want that for us. He wanted us to be able to have the freedom to do what we wanted to do, what we're passionate about, and employ other people around us that might not be able to, that would have to suffer through things in other areas of employment where they might not be getting paid a fair wage. They might get taken advantage of. They might have to deal with a lot of racism. So, that was what we did. He wasn't too happy about us starting a nonprofit organization, but that was what we came up with starting the Holistic Life Foundation, because we wanted to share those practices with as many people as possible. And we knew that through nonprofits, you could get grants, and grants were how we didn't know anything about running a nonprofit at that point. So we thought you had to get grants to serve the community. You get grants by having a nonprofit. So we started a nonprofit. Our first opportunity to teach was an after-school program for 15 fifth grade boys, which went really well. Actually, a lot of those kids we're still in contact with to this day. A bunch of them have worked for us, and it's been good to see them grow and want to give back. I'd say one of the things about that showed us working with that group was that people needed support throughout time. And then once people connected to themselves, they got connected to the world around them in a bigger way. A lot of their peers, their world was just their physical environment, those few square blocks that were their neighborhood. And that's what they saw as their reality and the only things that they could achieve. The students that we worked with and developed a mindfulness practice got in touch with themselves. And then they saw that there was a bigger connection out there to the rest of the planet. And they dreamed and they achieved on a lot larger scale than the people around them. Of that group, they all either graduated from high school earlier on time. They all stayed out of trouble for a long time, but eventually things happen. And in Baltimore City, it's easy to get in the justice system, but they stayed out of trouble for a really long time. And I think one of the things that we saw that we had to do with our second group of students who were from our neighborhood was we had to provide them with opportunities after high school for employment. Because we had all these kids that were running around. There was a point in Baltimore where like gangs were moving in, and so our students were they were involved in a lot outside of school and in the neighborhood. And one of the things that we noticed was that after they graduated from high school, they had a great mindfulness practice, but they weren't going to go work for minimum wage somewhere. They were going to go hit the streets to take care of themselves and their families. So that was when we really, really started to decide that we had to be intentional about workforce development, which has become a huge part of the Holistic Life Foundation these days. Training people from the community to use the practices to help the community. Because nobody wants to be stressed out standing on a corner. That's not something that people really want. It's just out of necessity. And I think it's one of those things that there's a lot, they make more money working with us. It's a lot calmer existence and actually helping. People want to help, but a lot of them don't have opportunities or outlets to help. Or when they show up and they look a certain way, people don't allow them to help. And that's been a huge thing with us is, like if somebody wants to come work for us and they're willing to learn the practice, they can be engaged with the kids, then that's what we do. A lot of our workforce development goes above and beyond just the practice. A lot of it goes around professionalism because they may not have had anyone in their home to model what being employed and working a 9 to 5 and showing up to work on time and not showing up smelling like weed. Like they might not know those, or just not going to a check cashing place to cash your check, but actually getting direct deposit, having your money waiting for you. Just simple things like that, but that they haven't had modeled for them, so that they're just to make their life a lot easier. Another thing that we've been working on is our satellite program. We've always believed that the best solutions are homegrown solutions. And we were going up to a Mohawk reservation called Aquasasne. It's way up, probably the furthest you can go in upstate New York. And it straddles the New York and Canada border. So I think like 2/3 of the land is on the New York side and 1/3 is on the Canadian side, somewhere around there. And we've been doing work up there for a couple of years. And, we go up there, it's a couple times a year, for about a week at a time. It's great work, but it wasn't really sustainable. So we decided that we were going to set up a Holistic Life Foundation up there run by people who lived on the reservation, Mohawks that lived and grew up there. We got the support of the chiefs, and the program's in its second year and it's flourishing. Our program director is an amazing woman. She's been coordinating everything logistically. And then we started looking for people 18 to 24, but it doesn't really happen all the time. So some of our staff are a little older, and we train them to be able to teach the practices. But the beautiful thing about it, like I was saying with the best solutions are homegrown, like the way that they describe the practices are different than the way we do. We talk about light in our practice, like seeing the light in yourself, seeing light in other people. But for them, it's smoke. Smoke is their way of having that connection. So it's just like those little tweaks that we wouldn't know, but giving people the information, empowering them with the knowledge, and then turning them loose and having the infrastructural support of the Holistic Life Foundation to do more work. So we're actually looking for a second city to do another satellite program in. So we'll start looking for that. A lot of our programs are school-wide interventions during the school day, mindful moment program. You'll probably seen that whole turning detention to meditation viral video that just keeps popping up. And then where we do great work with suspension numbers. But yeah, a lot of what we do, just real quick, and then we'll jump into another practice, is around practicality. like making people understand the practical ways to use the practices in their life to enhance their life and the way that they live. Because it means nothing if they only practice with us. Like that's going to help them de-stress, but they have to be able to understand how to use them in day-to-day life to function properly and be happier and have more inner and outer peace in their life. And also the reciprocal teaching model. Like our teacher told us that he wasn't training students, he was training teachers. That's the way that we teach. We use the reciprocal teaching model where the kids come to the front to lead. They learn the benefits of the practice. And that way they become empowered by them. They take ownership of them and are actually more likely to go out and teach someone in the community. So if we go to school, work with 300 kids, that's awesome. But if we can make those 300 kids 300 teachers, then the ripples go out vastly out all over the world. So that's a little bit about who we are and how we got started, why we do what we do. Now I guess we'll jump into another practice before Q&A.
Yeah, we'll lead them through a little breathing exercise. This is an exercise that we use a lot in a lot of our programs, and we see the benefits of it, especially with youth who we may not see for like 10 years, and then 10 years down the line they'll see us and they'll be like, hey, Mr. Yoga Man or Ali, what's going on? Like, I don't really be doing the movement that much, but I still do the breathing. And they always show this breathing technique. So you can see the impact that it has had on them and how, like Ali was saying, it's very practical and something they can use and they've been using for their entire lives. A large part of what we do when we're talking about mindfulness is, three main concepts of being aware of yourself, what's going on around you, and being able to use techniques like the one we're about to show you to center yourself so you can be in that present moment. A lot of us are constantly, like Atman was saying earlier, allowing people to rent space in our heads and situations that have gone on in the past that we might be upset about or frustrated with, or, just someone said something or did something to us, so we're angry and we're frustrated of something that's going on. They're sitting there, right? And it's just sitting inside of our being. And it could also be stuff in the future that's coming, some anxiety and worry as to, what are we going to do with ourselves? What's the future have for us? What's coming? A lot of these thoughts are overwhelming to the majority of the population, and we don't have a way to clear those thoughts when we really do. I mean, this breathing technique we're going to show you is very, very simple. It's very easy, and it's been proven that it will shift your way of thinking from that sympathetic side to your parasympathetic side, to your natural resting state. This technique is very good at activating the vagus nerve and getting that mind-body connection going. Anytime you have any type of anxiety, whether it's stress or performance anxiety, a lot of times with the students and the kids and the youth we work with, we recommend this prior to them taking tests. We've had some pretty amazing results. There was a school that was running our Mindful Moment program, and it was in Louisville, Kentucky, and they had their state exams, and before their state exams, they got the entire school to do this breathing technique, and they ended up getting some of the best results that they've ever had in school history. So you really can see how this is kind of like, we'd say it's like hitting the reset button, for you. So it's like just be able to clear your mind and make it so you don't feel like you do sometimes where you're at work and you didn't do any really physical activity, but since you were running in your mind all day, then when you get home, you like lay in your sofa and you're just like, oh, like I'm exhausted, and you're actually physically drained from that mental activity. This technique really, really helps with removing those ruminating thoughts that aren't allowing you to be present, those ones that have you thinking about stuff that happened in the past or that anxiety that's coming in the future. So this is a very, very good exercise to be able to center yourself and get yourself in the present moment. The key with this exercise is you do want to make it audible. So when you read up on it, they say you have to close your glottis. I know when we first heard that, we didn't know what a glottis was. So I don't know if any of y'all know what your glottis is, but the way that we end up helping y'all out and understanding how to make the breath audible is a technique that we do where you imagine that you're fogging up a mirror. So if you take your hand and you put it in front of you and you breathe out like you're fogging a mirror up, like, you do that first, so you understand, all right, I'm fogging this mirror up. Then the way that you start to kind of close your glottis is you're going to do that same thing. We're going to fog the mirror up. But then right away, like 2 seconds in, you're going to close your mouth and breathe out your nose so it's still being audible. So you'll do now that your breath is audible on the exhale, when you inhale, it should be audible as well. And that's that vibration that you want to do, which is stimulating the vagus nerve, which is telling your body, okay, we want to get in our more natural, relaxed state. So when you do find yourself in an adverse situation or a heightened state where you're going through something, you try this technique, get that vibration going, and it'll be able to shift you over to your relaxed state. There's also a lock in this breath. So what we do is you'll be able to see myself and Ali will be able to model it real quick. You're going to inhale through your nose, nice and deep. You're going to hold, retain your breath, bring your chin down to your chest for a few seconds. 3, 2, 1, and you're going to exhale. You're going to bring your head up. All right, nice and simple. If it's a little tough for you to make the audibility, don't stress it. We call this the stress breath, right? So we're trying to help you relieve stress, not add stress to you. So if you're stressing out because you can't make it audible, don't sweat it as much. With practice, it'll come as well as the strengthening of your diaphragm and your lung capacity will increase. So the more and more you do this practice, the better you're going to be at it, the more proficient you will be at it, okay? So I invite you to get into a nice, comfortable seated position. Ideally, you want to have your head, neck, and spine aligned, your feet grounded on the floor. If you like to, you can get on the edge of your seat. That'll help you prop your spine up. But just be nice and comfortable. What's the goal here? You know, you're being a scientist here, and you're going to try out this technique. You're going to do an experiment, and you're going to see if it's going to do what we just told you it does. At the end of the technique, we're going to ask you to be that scientist and to do an internal assessment. So you'll take 3 breaths on your own. You'll take note of how your mind feels, how your body feels, so that now you had that personal experience and you know what this technique does for your body. Afterwards, we'll do a little Q&A and you all can ask us any questions that you need, right? So go ahead and get in that comfortable position. If you'd like, I welcome you to close your eyes. I think it helps with blocking out distractions, but it's completely up to you. If you don't feel comfortable doing so, you can just lighten your gaze or maybe stare at a point in front of you. And we'll do these breathing techniques together. Remember, all the breathing is going to be in and out of our noses. So everybody inhale nice and deep, as long as you can. Nice, slow, deep breath through your nose. Hold it. Bring your chin down to your chest. 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. Go ahead and bring your head up. Try to make the breath audible if you can. Inhale nice and deep. Nice, long, deep inhale. Pushing that stomach out while you're bringing in the air. Hold it. Lock your chin down to your chest. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. Bring your head up. As well as bringing your stomach in. Imagine your belly button is trying to touch your spine as you push all that stale CO2 and air out on your exhale. Inhale, nice, long, and deep breath. Hold it, bring your chin down to your chest. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, and bring your head on up. Inhale deep. Hold it, lock your chin to your chest. For 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bring your head up. We'll do 3 more together. Inhale nice and deep through your nose. Hold, lock your chin to your chest. For 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bring your head up. Two more, inhale deep. Hold, lock your chin to your chest. For 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bring your head up. Last one we do together. Inhale, nice, long, deep breath. Hold, lock your chin to your chest. For 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, bring your head up. Now go ahead and take 3 breaths on your own. Conduct that internal assessment, being a scientist and asking yourself about your mind and your body. How does your mind feel? Is it racing with thoughts or has it cleared a little? How does your body feel? Is it tense or has it relaxed? After you finish this assessment, you now know that if you ever want to feel this way again, all you have to do is a few of these breaths. And if you happen to have your eyes closed during the practice, once you finish with that assessment, you can slowly, slowly blink your eyes open and come back to your senses. Very simple practice, but also very, very powerful. A recommendation I would say is just try to start incorporating this into your day early in the morning, maybe at the end of the day as well. Try to do 5 to 10 of these breaths whenever you can. Cue for me, a little more of a cue in the past than it is as much now because I don't drive as much to the office because of all this COVID stuff. But my little reminder for me was my car keys. So whenever I drove to the office, whenever I pulled my car keys out of the ignition, that was my cue to take a few deep breaths so that I could clear my mind and be completely present for work. So leave everything that was going on at home and be fully present at work. And then when I drove home from work, the same thing. Once I parked my car, pulled my keys out, that was my cue again to take a few of these breaths, leave everything that's going on at work, and I can be 100% at home. So I really hope you enjoyed it. And I think now we're going to do a little Q&A session where we're going to answer some questions and keep this conversation going.
Hi again, friends. It just makes my heart sing to have you all here at Tufts again. You are magnificent humans. And thank you for, just really guiding us on what is so vitally important, that self-love and centering ourselves to give to communities, to give to the world. So what I'm going to do is ask a question, and then I will pass it on to my colleague and friend, Esrae Peoples, who will ask a question or two. And then I will open it up to questions that come from the audience in the chat. So we invite all of you to think of some questions, some burning questions that you'd like to ask Ali and Andres and Atman, and just put them in the chat, just drop them in, and then I will share them with the Holistic Life co-founders. So I'm going to circle back to Dean Dana Cunningham's introduction at the beginning when she talked about, so specifically when she spoke about how she views mindfulness practices as grounding in terms of awareness-based systems change. And so I'm wondering, in your experiences, the breadth and depth of your life experiences and your experiences with the Holistic Life Foundation, what do you see as the role of mindfulness practices in the work to address and dismantle racism in our communities and in the world? So it's a big question.
So I think it does a little bit of both. It does a little bit to hurt and a little bit to help. I think a lot of people are under the misconception that, like, if you're mindful, like, you can't be racist. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm mindful, like they're floating around the world and everything's fine. But I think they also have to do a little bit of introspection with the practice. I think it's why a lot of people don't go deep with the meditation practice, honestly, because when you do go deep with your meditation practice, you're kind of looking at all your stuff. And it's a lot of reasons a lot of people get turned off from it or kind of shy away from it. And I think that if you do decide to go deep with it, that's when you start to see, like, well, I have these inherent biases, because we all have them. Like, but I think some groups are allowed to act on them more and make them to cause other people to suffer than others are. So I think it can go twofold. I think it can make you aware of the ways that you are being racist or biased towards other people, but it also can have that whole spiritual bypassing effect where people think that, oh, well, since I do this, I can't be racist. So I think it just depends on how much introspection you put into your practice and how deep you go with it.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Ali. I'm wondering, Andres or Atman, if either of you have perspectives to share in this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ali hit it on the head, really. I mean, ideally, these mindfulness techniques and practices are allowing to increase our awareness and increase our compassion for ourselves and for others. And, and hopefully it'll allow the individuals in the world to be able to see what's really going on and to be able to place ourselves in other people's shoes and understand that, this is real. Anyone that says they don't have racial bias or says they don't see color, that's not real. They're being full of it. All of us have that. It's part of what is going on in the world these days. So ideally, these techniques allow us to be able to see that more clearly and understand what's going on and have more compassion and empathy for the plight that a lot of individuals are going through and they've been going through for centuries now, and it's very, very relevant nowadays. I think it's right in front of our faces more than it's ever been. And I think that hopefully, as a mindfulness practitioner or someone who does these techniques, that we'll have advances towards making some changes. But I think Ali hit it on the head too. There's definitely people out there who are like, well, I meditate, so I'm not racist. And that's not correct at all, So, I definitely think it goes both ways. But, in the long run, I'm hoping that these techniques are what the world needs to be able to see who we are a little clearer and to really know ourselves better. And hopefully as individuals know who their real selves are, then we can understand, how to be better humans in this planet to work together so that we don't have as much of all this racism and segregation that's going on in the world today.
Yeah, beautiful, essential insights. Thank you so much. And it's hopeful as we think about try to work towards moving beyond the binary and looking at racism and racial injustice and implicit bias. So I'd love to, Atman, shall we move to question from Esray?
Yeah, we can move on to the next question.
Okay, all right.
I think they knocked it out the park.
Yeah, knocked it out of the park. So I'd love to introduce colleague and friend Esray Peoples. And Esray why don't you introduce yourself to everyone and then pose your question?
All right. Briefly, happy Wednesday, everyone. Really close to Friday now, so should put a smile on all of our faces. I serve as one of 4 associate directors for diversity and inclusion education. I serve primarily the Medford SMFA campus. And extending a good afternoon to you gentlemen. I want to thank you for engaging our community in really such a stirring conversation, very thought-provoking, as well as the mindfulness practices you've guided us in this afternoon. This question actually centers around Holistic Life Foundation's creation of BAM, Bridging Academics and the Mind. And this is a 2-part question. So firstly, what would you all say have been the points of joy and success in bringing BAM into academic spaces, particularly at universities? And then secondly, in your observations, what are some of the challenges in embedding mindfulness practices into the culture of academic spaces?
Well, I mean, I can dive in first. BAM, or as we like to say, BAM, is a program that, speaks to our heart, honestly. Our teacher, had always told us, he's like, man, back in my day, you had to, like Ali said, travel to certain ashrams or centers to be able to learn these different practices. But one of the beauties of the internet is being able to have that reach around the world. And that's what we've been able to do with our BAM program. It started off just because, teachers have a lot on their plate. And, this was a teacher's tool originally to be able to give them best practices and not really have to be familiar being a student of yoga, mindfulness, meditation, and breath work. And they can actually give their kids these tools to be able to thrive. What we did was we went in and gave the teachers a professional development and let them actually understand the neuroscience behind what is happening with these different practices, and then actually lead them through all these different practices so they could actually see how it could benefit their school environment, classroom environment. Then, we went and taught them, gave them like a programs menu of what practices to do in ideal times of the day, whether it's at the beginning of the day, whether it's in transition times, whether it's after lunch, whether it's at the end of the day, whether it's before test taking time. And, it really allowed people who weren't comfortable leading these practices, gave them a tool to be able to help their students and help their classroom environment. Whenever the kids are rowdy, we have specific practices that can drop them in and, stuff like that. And then, the pandemic hit, and then, we knew we wanted to still be of service. So we went from it being a teacher's tool to being an in-home tool to help these kids dealing with the anxiety and trauma that they faced being at home. So, we have like 3 different phases of the program. Phase 1 is like introductory phase where they learn what the benefits of the practice are, how to do the practice, and actually jumping into the practice. Phase 2 is just jumping into the practice without the, the benefits and how to do it. And then in schools, phase 3 was, because, our whole model is reciprocal teaching. And even if we're using the internet or technology to be able to bring these practices to these students, we still wanted to have them learn how to be teachers. So they would come up to the front of the room and lead their peers with prompt cards through these practices, which is empowering and healing to trauma and, stuff like that. But at the at-home version, when COVID hit, phase 1 and phase 2 was the same, but then phase 3 was just like a combination of different practices, whether it was like an overall practice, something to help you sleep better, something to help you de-stress, and, a lot of other scenarios that, help these kids while they were separated from their friends and sometimes safe spaces. And, I think one of the drawbacks of using technology to be able to teach these practices, we have a mentor, Dr. Mark Greenberg from Penn State. And one thing he always told us is like, technology is great, but it's missing one aspect. The aspect is that face-to-face with those people leading you through those practices. If you do have a question or if you do have a comment and, they're like, well, this makes me do this. And the teacher can be like, well, yeah, in my life, it's helped me do this. So it's that's pretty much the only drawback that we see as far as using technology for these practices, is that face-to-face, inquiry with, an expert in the field. But other than that, you take what you can do and, with this technology and try to be of service as much as possible. And that's what we try to do with the BAM program.
Yeah, and I think just real quick for your second question about the challenges to bringing mindfulness to academic spaces. One, teachers have a lot on their plate and they don't want to, I feel like teachers feel like they get curriculums thrown at them all the time. It's like, it's a new year, new curriculum. We got to learn this, check this box off. And they have a lot going on their plate. So they don't really have time for new things to be thrown at them. Another thing is the whole secondary trauma and burnout that teachers deal with. I think they see this as something they can teach the kids instead of something they can use as self-care to kind of burn off that stress and heal themselves from that secondary trauma. I think it's a waste of time. I feel like all academic time should be used as learning in a lot of different places. I'm not saying everybody, but just overall generalities where it's like I'm not seeing my return on investment. But like, if you spend 45-minute class period and you spend 20 minutes redirecting a class, but you can spend 3 minutes at the beginning to get them to do some breathing, like you're actually getting more academic time and not losing any. And the last one is teachers. We've come to see a lot of teachers believe in punishing the kids, like send them to the office, send them to in-school suspension, give them detention, and not in giving them an opportunity to kind of correct their behavior because all these practices are about self-regulation. So like, just a gentle reminder of, hey, let's try this, and then give them a second chance. A lot of that gets thrown out of the window.
Beautiful. So questions have not come in yet from everyone else who is part of this session today. And I just want to, say again to all those who are watching that we'd love your questions. I know that Esre has another question to ask. So why don't you go ahead?
Sure, I'll ask. Thinking about the why behind our work and our passion and commitment. And also thinking about the notion of using our present to impact the trajectory of our future and creating change for, I think of that sweet spot and that golden number of 7 generations out. I'm wondering what kind of organizational environments do you imagine future generations existing within as a direct result of the work that Holistic Life Foundation is doing in the here and now, in the present?
I think one of the dopest things is the fact that like a lot of our staff that were young, they were kids when we started with them. They have kids of their own, and their kids are at home meditating and doing breath work and practicing yoga. And like a lot of the teachers that we work with that get into the practice and principles, they'll go home and teach their kids to practice. So I think it's just like getting them started earlier and earlier and earlier. And hopefully the practices stick. I know my 2 sons, like we meditate together. Like we do like a lot more spiritual practices and stuff we can't teach in school, but like it's a part of our life. So I think it's just getting them started early, making them, and also not forcing the practice on them, but getting them to take ownership of the practice. So it's something that they fall back on and not feel, again, that whole reciprocal teaching thing, like to teach your kids to be teachers instead of students so that they use the practice like they know when they need it and they go back to it constantly. So I think those are the types of things. And I also think hopefully the Holistic Life Foundation is making enough of an impact and doing bigger things that because like I was talking about earlier, there's a lot of people that we hire that would not be able to make the amount of money they make with us legally because of things on the record or only having a GED or a high school diploma. But just giving people opportunities. Hopefully it wakes other organizations and places up to give people opportunities that might not get opportunities that, you make a mistake when you're 13, 14 years old, you shouldn't have to pay for it the rest of your life with your quality of living. So the only 2 things that popped up.
Thank you so much. We do have a couple of 3 questions that came in. So I'll read them in order. So the first is from someone who, Hillary, who focuses in her work and the work of her organization on helping teachers to understand that this work can support both their self-care, vicarious trauma, and the classroom environment. And still, she writes, the temptation is to focus just on the kids, to control their behavior. And that temptation can be really powerful and can really pull. And is there something that you have found particularly helpful in helping teachers to attend to their own needs? And then another question from Cheryl is, are there stories about how your work might have impacted or rippled out into communities for healing and or connecting across differences. And then lastly, a question about whether you include mindful movement in your programs. So I figured time-wise, I would just give you all of what's come in so far.
I'll try to dive in, and if I miss any parts, fellas, y'all can jump in there. But you all were talking about like the impact on teachers with self-care. It takes me back to this teacher that we had at Patterson High School, where we had our first mindful moment program, and he was not trying to give up any of his time for us to, because we had a recording played at the beginning of the day over the loudspeaker, and at the end of the day. At the beginning of the day to get kids grounded and present, because you never know what they're bringing from home, and at the end of the day to kind of build them back up before they go back home. And this dude would turn down the volume and teach over like, we're not listening to this today, and whenever we would walk into the office, we'd see him and like a couple other teachers talking, and then they just stop talking when us three would come into the office. We're like, dude, we know you're talking about us. And, his class was disrespecting him all the time. And, you could tell he was on his way out. He was burned out. And this was maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And, one day we went in there and, like actually tried to get them to play or just observe his class. And the class was really disrespectful to him and, cussing him out and all this other stuff. And then I think it was Andy, pulled the students up and was like, yo, y'all don't need to disrespect this dude. He's actually teaching y'all a skill that is a trade that you all will be able to make money from when you all get out of school. Y'all need to respect this and respect the practice. Have y'all done the practice? And then, the teacher was so blown away that, we stood up for him, that he started actually doing the practice with the students. His classroom environment improved. Whenever we had funders come into the program, come check our program out, they would go to his classroom, because his classroom became the ideal classroom with him giving up those 5 minutes to actually do the practice. And he went from like a goth dude wearing all black and, not a loving vibe at all, to whenever he saw us, he would give us huge hugs, and he wear floral print shirts, and his total identity changed. And he's still teaching to this day. He found a love and passion for the practice because he did learn some self-care with these practices, and which also rippled out into his classroom. One
other thing about the teachers. When we go into a school and work with the teachers, like if we're working with them for an entire year of professional development, the first half of the year, all we do is self-care. We won't even show them how to teach the practices. We want them to actually be able to use them on themselves. And then we'll start to get them to, in the second semester, we'll get them to start using them with the students. So we're very intentional about the way that we present the information to teachers.
And just to answer the other two questions, yes, we do movement in our programs. It just depends on the situation and the space we have. And also there are plenty of stories about the work and how they have impacted lives, communities on our website. You can go there, hlfinc.org, and you can go to our media section so you can see some of the articles that were written up on us and some of the videos as well. And any other stuff that you need in terms of us being here as a resource and supporting y'all, please let us know. You can always reach out at info@hlfinc.org and ask us any other questions that you might have.
Beautiful. So Ali and Andres and Atman, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful for you. So lots of love. And Esray, you want to give the final goodbye and thanks?
I get to do the final goodbye and thanks.
You do.
Again, thank you so much for being willing to share space and time with us, and moving us through breathing practices, but just information to have us think about and contemplate and reflect on the ways in which we could apply this personally and within Tufts community. And so I'm thoroughly grateful to have had this opportunity to engage with you all and my colleagues here.
Yeah. Love you all.
Love you all too. Thank you so much.
You all.
All right.
Have a blessed day.
Bye.
Bye.